here. We are live. Excellent. Hello, everybody. So I'm just going to do as I always do. I got to click over here on Instagram. It takes a second to kick in and it's going. All right. Fantastic. So thank you, everyone who's joining us, whether you're joining us live or you're joining us recorded, whatever time of day that you're watching this. We appreciate you inviting us into your day and taking in this content. We're confident that something that gets said is going to touch somebody in a way that's going to make them look at life in a different way. And that always excites me because I know that that's where connection happens. So I have with me Jennifer today, and in a moment, I'm going to have her introduce herself and tell you all what she does. Again, I sometimes forget to mention, sometimes the comments, I don't notice them because I'm so engaged in the conversation that I don't even notice them popping up. I try to, but if you comment and we don't respond to it, please know we are going to look back at where the conversation is saved on the different social media platforms. And I will make a point of responding to any questions or comments that are there. And of course, feel free to DM either of us with any thoughts that you might have that we don't address while we're having this conversation. So with that said, why don't you tell everybody who you are, what you do, and then we'll chat.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Deb. I'm so grateful to spend some time with you. Deb and I met, for those of you who don't know, in a mastermind together, and she is literally the brightest light in the whole room. Not just from her essence and what she gives, but physically and emotionally. She's there to continuously give so much that I think she had asked in the group, if anyone was uncomfortable coming for the first time, she wouldn't just meet them and help them socialize. She'd get them to the dance floor because our mastermind has dance parties. So at that moment, I was like, she's my people. So thank you for being authentic and brave and vulnerable. And I want to say like badass, but you come off as like that quiet kind of badass in there, right?
I love it.
So I see you, and I'm so grateful for what you're putting out there in the world today. Changing lives, making impacts. And that aligns so much to what I'm here for. After many years in a corporate career, 26 years, I was climbing the corporate ladder looking for significance and certainty in my life when my life had felt uncertain for many, many years. And at one point, I just got completely burnt out. And that manifested in things like panic attacks and anxiety, high cortisol, chronic stress fatigue, low thyroid, inflammation, literally the things that look like symptoms of getting older, but my nervous system was just completely depleted. I was out of control, outsourcing my worth and my value to my career and to people that would mirror back to me what I needed to see. My greatest fear, as many's is that I'm not worthy and I'm not good enough. And I've been able to heal that. It's been a path of surrender through a lot of different modalities. And today I'm a coach. I teach yoga. I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner, and I teach people how to reclaim their worthiness so they're no longer in a path of suffering. I do believe suffering is a choice, and I know that can rub people the wrong way if you're in a pattern of suffering. But there's a rope that you can climb up, and it's your choice. It's your work, though. And although work is work, and it can be quote unquote hard, it is so worth it to find freedom, to find acceptance, to find joy, to heal the body, the mind, the soul, and to live without limitations. So that's what I'm sharing today, Deb. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, well, first off, thank you for those beautiful words. That means a lot. And know that now those words will be part of everything I do forward, right? When you speak into me, that means a tremendous amount to me. So I thank you for taking the time to do that. And I love something that you said before we hopped on the call, just before, but I want to speak to something that you just said that really struck me. I don't think I've ever heard it said quite that way before. So if somebody else has said it, I've just not heard it, when you said you were outsourcing your worth to your career.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a really strong phrase to think about, because whether it's a career or something else, because there's a lot of things that we can outsource our worth to, but it has to do with making something else the definition of our worth. Yeah. Rather than recognizing that we are worthy as we are, which ties back to what you were mentioning earlier about joy. And we find the joy when we acknowledge that we are complete and whole as we are. And all these other things are parts of how we can live that fullness out. So what was for you, because you talked about all those really difficult, negative things that were happening as a result of the fact that you were feeling not worthy and overwhelmed. What kind of gave you that awareness to, I mean, that phrase that, hey, I'm giving something else the power to determine how I'm going to feel and whether or not I have a place in this world?
Yeah, so we'll go deep pretty quickly.
Okay.
The trigger was a outburst from a boss at work that stirred up the response in my body was the panic attack.
Mm.
I went to therapy, and my therapist said, "You need to learn how to breathe. It's the diaphragm that's not descending. You should go to yoga." I wasn't a yogi at the time. So I go to yoga resistantly. I liked kickboxing. I liked sprinting, anything to cause more distraction in my life, to not have to the avoidance, right? I'm completely dissociating and avoiding of self. I don't even know this whole self persona thing. I'm just a worker. I was a single mom. I was a performer,
Mm.
overachiever, anything that gave me this worth, significance. As long as my W-2 was increasing and I was getting promoted, I was good. But I really wasn't, because I was completely void of this relationship with me, unconscious. And
Right.
so we go to yoga. And the story goes like this. I'm in a hot room. It's 95 degrees. The door is behind me. And when the class starts, the music was it was like a classic rock, a gentleman teacher. The poses and the shapes, it was rigorous. It was challenging. And the room was hot. So we're pouring sweat. We're moving fast. And a couple times I want to leave. And my escape is, I don't need to be here. I should leave. I don't like it. Start to get a little nauseous, right? Because the heat and the movement. And I stopped running. For maybe the first time in my life, I stopped running
Mhm.
with filling my schedule and being too busy, or working so much, or traveling for work, or climbing that ladder, looking for the external validation. I stopped running. I fell to my knees and I cried. I cried. A little girl in me cried. The big girl in me cried. The woman in me cried. And this became a new outlet and a new release for me that I don't think I ever had permission to feel and express and explore. Somebody is in here who is hurting. And that resulted, the trigger of the situation at my work that brought me to the yoga mat was just the surface. It was just the symptom. There was years of work I hadn't done for myself about trauma, about pain, about heartbreak, about betrayal. Years. It was about 11, 12 years ago now. So 30 something years of undigested emotions that
Mhm.
finally had permission to come up and out. So then I started studying and learning some of the symptoms of my life and the root causes leading to codependency. So, raised in an alcoholic family, when as a child you are not validated as a child, you become the caregiver, managing the emotions to avoid the disruption and chaos. So you never fully develop in that child innocence. You become the parent of the parents.
Right.
So codependency, unbeknownst to me, was the way I learned to have my feelings validated on somebody outside of me. So first it was this form of an addictive pattern. If I act a certain way, if I do a certain thing, if I'm smart enough, if I get the good grades, if I stay out of trouble, I'm loved. Fast forward into that helped me excel in my career, but it was a really unhealthy outlook on, if I perform, I'm loved. So then what happens when you don't land the contract, when the client doesn't move forward with something you negotiated, when agreements are not taken, carried through? I'm unloved. Add that into personal relationships. I'm divorced. I had a marriage that didn't work. It was toxic. We treated each other terribly. So what, am I not loved? And that was a program. I'm unlovable. I'm unworthy. So I learned it, and you cannot just unlearn it. So the problem with the stories that happen in life, like, they happen, we need to validate that. It's the story we tell ourselves about what happened. My worth isn't based on my parents. It's not based on anybody except God. It's my inherent worth and what God gave me. He knows every hair on my head as well as yours. So I am worthy. I don't have to perform or do anything but breathe and be and draw into the presence of that love. That is freedom. That is the change. So that's where the
Ooh.
information came from. Just going in, going deep, getting really curious. Why this feels awful? I don't want to live this way anymore. Enough is enough. What is really the root of this pain? And you go back to go forward.
Yeah, I didn't realize how much we had in common until you were just talking. You maybe knew some of this. I don't, because I have talked about it a couple times, but so I grew up in an alcoholic household as
Yeah.
well. That in and of itself, when you talked about the need to grind and the need to go and the need to be in control, because there are things for me, like I end up working with change, right? And why? Because for me, there was things I wanted to change. So it's like, where can I create change? But there were also things you don't want to change, because like when you're living in that uncertainty, which alcoholic behavior is uncertain. You really don't know what the next moment is going to bring. Happiness, anger, is everything, like, is this going to be a nice night? What's going to unfold here? And so you start to kind of figure out strategies that you can use to either initiate change or adapt to change. So
Yeah.
very similar to you take those strategies and they make you able to be successful. They made
Yeah.
me able to be successful in my career, successful in, for the most part, in sports, though I would argue that for me, not for you, but for me, actually, I would say in many ways it actually contradicted how successful I could have been, because I would beat myself on the start line. I
Oh,
was the mental stuff that was going. So I would run my heart out, but there was so much more I could have done
yeah.
if I was not running a race before I even ran the
Mm.
race.
Yeah.
And that was, so when you're talking about that thing, that concept of going, right? Kickboxing, running, anything endurance, right? Lifting weights where I could like really feel the strain. You
Yeah.
can in yoga as well, but there's
Yeah.
a certain mindset that comes with some of those other things, because like I'm tough, I'm in control, I'm going to continue to push and push.
Yeah.
So much so that I ended up injuring myself, some injury that I'm going to have forever, right? Because of that. And so I remember a friend saying to me like, "Oh, we should go and do yoga." And I was thinking like, I didn't have a negative association with yoga. I just didn't think like in my mind, it was like we were going to stretch. This was
Right.
many years ago, but like we were going to stretch. But even that, and it sounds like the yoga you were doing was a bit more on the intense side.
Yeah.
But even that, there's something about literally placing your mat, like, this is my place, and I'm going to stand on this mat. And in this moment, in this place, I am going to pause. And everything that I'm going to do is be very intentional, right?
Mhm.
When you're running, you're often you're just running, right? You're going through the motions. I mean, obviously in some sports, there's concentration and things, but there's something very intentional with yoga,
Yeah.
right? How can I stretch this just the right amount? And similar to you, whether it was yoga or some other yoga, I don't know why I'm saying yoga, just gave an R to it, but yoga or some other pause in my life, in that moment when you have the quiet and you realize how out of control you feel.
Mm.
But we've convinced ourselves, because we're doing all of these other things, that I'm in control. Same thing. I ended up in actually two unhealthy marriages. I'm now very happily married. Some people don't know I was married twice before. So always want to clarify that my current marriage is amazing. My husband is a wonderful human being, but went through two unhealthy marriages. And I think it was, you just forget to stop and think about what isn't okay for you, because you're operating under this mode that you've been in your whole life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, how would you even know what is or isn't okay with you when you have never really identified who you are and what you
Right.
actually want, because you've been doing it for everybody else? Oh, Deb, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I've been adulting and now I have boundaries and now I know who I am and what I want and what I want to call in. And this led me to leaving my corporate career, because then I thought, I don't like this. I don't like some of the behavior. I don't like some of the things I'm being asked to do. I don't like some of the people I work with. I don't like the values were not in alignment, because then I actually found I have values. I was emotionally bankrupt, morally corrupt. And then I realized I had a choice. I can define, redefine, come to this evolution. Who am I and who do I want to be? And remove myself from these old programs. I'm not her. And it took me a really long time to get that. But I think once we wake up to, there is a way, there is hope. There is freedom. There is expansion. There is more love and more joy in this world. And every day is phenomenal. Even on a day that would be, I don't say that hard word anymore, but on days that challenge me, I'm still like, yes, bring it, because I get to still expand and collaborate and grow. Where before I was so scared of it, I would run from it. Although the facade was, I'm chasing it down. I'm thriving, I'm crushing it, epic life, hashtag all the things. And sleep when I'm dead was my favorite mantra. And I'm like, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
I'm going to sleep. I'm going to rest. I'm going to repair, restore, take the most impeccable care of this vessel so I can do another day.
Yeah, and what I love about what you do, and I think from our conversation even prior to hopping on this, right? That concept of joy and that concept of living into the moment and finding that, and because we can bring that to people as consultants and coaches, we can bring that to them where they're at. So sometimes it's going to mean I have to leave this situation, whether it's a job or a career, right? But sometimes it's how can I change the way that I'm addressing the situation or the way that what I'm accepting, what are my boundaries, how do I maneuver through that?
Yes.
And allowing us to feel that joy, right?
Yeah.
Which is that choice of, in this circumstance, I'm going to find how this is going to contribute to my purpose. And it doesn't mean that we don't get sad or that we don't get frustrated, but it means that you're very mindful about the way that you're going to perform in whatever situation you are in and the messages you're going to receive from that situation if you don't get the result that you would like or that you think you need. Because
Yeah.
sometimes we think we need something and it's really not what we need. But either way, we're disappointed when it's not the result that we've envisioned. And so we have to find a way to be able to kind of accept that there are things we're not going to be able to change. And so what are we going to do with those things to work them into this mindset of joy that you're talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, permission to explore that and to know that even if it doesn't go the way you think, because we're looking still, I think the old fear is the base of most of the emotions that keep us restricted. So when we're looking for the outcome and to control the outcome so we can feel confident and secure, when we realize that it maybe if it doesn't play out the way that we need it to, there is always going to be another way, and is there room for growth? My mantra is always, when I'm upset or trying to control things, I used to try to control things and people, which I no longer do. Nobody wants to be controlled. Let me just be clear. Nobody likes to be controlled. I didn't like being controlled either. So we don't do that anymore. But what is it really about? So that's my question to myself. What is it when I'm upset, when I'm unwell, unstable, when I'm not feeling in flow? We were just talking about your friend that is, talking about this flow state. Flow is everything is coming to and through you, moving through you in your favor always. Life is always happening for you. Nothing's happening to you. It's just the resistance, or it's the looking through the attachment of the result or the meaning. So when we know it's coming and it's moving and we can just decide to be fully present, to experience all of it, nothing is good and nothing is bad. We just love to attach, putting our hooks into it because it gives us certainty and security when we live in an uncertain world, especially if you have some childhood stuff that hasn't been addressed, that was unsafe, insecure, unstable. We love to have that control. And there's really not a whole lot. It's like it's a suffocation so much that there's no room to really grow or feel that joy. So let it go.
Yeah.
And it's not like the movie. I can't remember what cartoon that was. Frozen. You don't just sing it and let it go. There's steps to do that. And being open enough to know that I don't want to feel this way anymore. There's another way. And then getting to having a coach. I really want to impress upon the listeners, coaches that have done the work and have the tools will help you quantum leap through that. So it doesn't, you can do therapy. I've done all the therapies. I've done the hypnotherapies. I've done a lot of coaching. I prefer coaching because it's usually based on results. We're looking to get you here. Here's the steps. Here's the tools. Therapy, I found a lot of talking and a lot of crying and a lot of I was stuck for a long time. And I don't love to go back and live in trauma and have to keep witnessing it. I want to know if it's affecting my life today, then we need to go back and heal it. If it's not, and then that looks like adults showing up as toddlers throwing tantrums. Just, we see it all day and then we witness, okay, that is an unhealed wound that probably would benefit from a coach and some tools.
Yeah. And I think with that becomes an awareness that, it's again, I'm going to talk about the soft part of yoga because there's also very much the cardiovascular hard part of yoga, but the soft part of yoga, the intentional movement. And when we do that in our day, when we take, that's control, but it's the healthy control. When we say, wait, relax into it. And then we feel the stress, you just feel like, okay, I'm not stressed. I'm not running. And from a, I'll talk about from a corporate perspective, because I know you work with a lot of really high level leaders, right? So from a corporate perspective, whether you're talking about on an individual basis, the leader, or whether you're talking about for teams, when we do that and we operate under a take a step back and pause, we become more effective and more efficient. Things get done faster, not slower, because stress just creates all these things that give you brain fog, right?
Yeah.
That's why when you're like running late and you're looking for something, you can't find it, right? There's a story I tell in one of my keynote talks about how I was running around the house one day. I was on the phone with somebody searching for my phone.
Yes.
And I'm like, and the person's like, I hear you're out of breath. Like, what's going on? And I'm like, I cannot find my phone. And I'm like, I'm like realizing that, but I was, because we just
Yeah.
don't think clearly, because we've defined that moment as I can't find what I want. And the more that we get stressed, the more it feeds into it, and it creates brain fog. And obviously sleep deprivation and all other things can contribute to that brain fog as well. But we know that that happens. Maybe in the immediate, right? The fight or flight, sometimes we get that initial adrenaline rush that might make us come up with a really great idea, or might be able to make us stronger in the moment. But on a sustained basis,
Yeah.
if you can take time to pause and create a good vibe, have people be kind to each other, right? Kind meaning actually listen to one another and engage. It doesn't mean you have to purchase flowers for each other every day, right?
Yeah.
Kindness isn't this concept of just like everything is roses and there's no problems, but it's being really respectful and intentional about trying to bring out joy in other people, and not just ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, I have seen incredible things happen before you even change processes, hardware or software, when you help people to just take time to really, really mindful in their own joy and to elicit that joy from other people.
Yeah. I mean, what you're tapping into. Yeah. So let me back up on the yoga, the connection to the breath, to consciousness, to the space and time that we're in the present, just to be aware that we matter and that this is sacred and these experiences are beautiful. So it is that pause. It's that pulling back from chaos and overdrive, because I think a lot of that performance is coming from a place of lack, where we're trying to fill that void, the hole in the soul, right? So when we come back to that beautiful connection, it doesn't have to physically be yoga, but a breath practice, a seated meditation. It could be 5 minutes just to unplug, to tune in and feel, what do I need? What does my body need? What does my heart need? Which takes me to the things you were talking about how we can show up for each other. It's really about having a pure heart. When we're not jumping ahead of like, how will this serve me? If I help this person, how does it help me? And more of, I am here to serve and give and contribute. And I think we've gotten so far away from this act of service and gifting presence to each other, just listening in a conversation. I mean, how often are we waiting for somebody to finish to then say the rebuttal or the, hey, did you try this? Or that's wrong. Like, God blessed us with 2 ears and 1 mouth. So compassionately listening with empathy. Like, I'm going to just listen. And if you want feedback, ask me, because otherwise I'm just going to let you be seen. So there's so much opportunity for us to remove ourselves from the chaos, especially in the corporate world, when you are being asked to do crazy things on a daily basis, working an insane amount of hours, to just pull back, have a morning ritual or an evening ritual to reconnect to you, back to your creator, back to the divine love and energy that's always here, that we can feel that presence, and then we can become more present to it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I think when you were just talking about that, right? Like the connection with the purpose that we've been given. And I think that we all of us, every single person without exception, part of our purpose is to help other people live their purpose.
100%.
Right. And that doesn't mean it's not something we're being weighted down with. It's not like a leaden cloak that's being draped on us and we have to carry this. Oh, I've got to help other people. It's like the more we help other people to live in their purpose, it elevates our purpose. Like it's this, we're really all connected powerfully together in that way. And I think, I've seen some of the things that you've posted where you've been talking about that. And it's resonated with me that when you're working with people who are in these high performing jobs, it's not a matter of you have to stop focusing on your high performance.
Yeah.
It's that you don't want to let the high performance define who you are. And so I know, like, sometimes I'll talk to people where we'll do like, just even in just conversation. So forget consulting or coaching, just talking with somebody. And I'll say like, well, what do you think about yourself? Like somebody will be saying they're sad. Well, like, what do you think about yourself? Well, I'm a great speaker, or I'm a great writer, or I'm a great leader, or I'm a great, but it always comes with this title.
Mm.
No, I'm great, period.
Yeah. Mhm.
I'm great, right? I don't, not you. Like, what do you think about you?
Yeah.
Like, what if you lost your job? What
Yeah.
if you're a great singer, you couldn't sing anymore? That you don't stop becoming incredible.
Yeah.
And that's very much what I see in your message, is that it's about really harnessing that greatness into wherever you are and whatever you're doing. And when you do that, those around you elevate to that level
Yeah.
because they feel it.
Girl, it's so good. Yeah, just the labels, the names, the personas, the identities that we've all been attached to, because either it was rewarding or it felt good, and there's nothing wrong with that, but take it away. And if life shifts or changes, can you still be okay being who you are? And do you know, I was just teaching this morning, that if we don't have the values that align to us, that we can stand for, that really helps us with our identity, we end up being like a plastic bag. And when the wind blows and we just go anywhere, we don't know what we stand for. We stand for nothing. It's not like we stand for everything. You can't stand for everything. What are your values? Who are you? And when you come back to, I'm a beautiful soul, I'm here to contribute. And I do believe that we are all here. Our purpose is to love and connect. And with that force of loving connection is to contribute. I think it's the way that we help connect each other. And if I can help you, then that may change and shift how you raise your children, how you contribute in your consulting, how you add value when you're writing your books. Like, if we could just stand together and support each other in a way that we are all aching and craving to be supported. No one wants to do this life alone. Even the people that are like, oh, I got this because I used to live that. I got this. I don't need anybody. Like, that was a facade. That was a persona of a deeply wounded girl that felt like she had to do it all by herself. Like, I don't want to be her anymore. Like, help me, support me. Let's connect and do bigger, impactful things together. That is the goal I have, to heal this planet by raising each other up.
Yeah.
Not tearing each other down. So, Deb, in that note, I see you, and I see your greatness and the beauty that flows through you.
Thank
I love
you
you so much. Thank you for doing
I love you so much. Yeah, we're cutting on 2:00. Before I do you need to go? Because I wanted to.
No,
Okay, because I wanted to share a story that it's funny. I don't think I've ever shared this, because I don't think I've ever really thought about it outside of maybe like in my family. But when you were just saying that, and it reminds me of a time when my kids were younger and I was trying to, the concept of like rewarding good behavior as opposed to consequences for negative behavior, and the whole balancing. And, a lot of parenting is just trying to figure things out as you go. And so I had created this system with them where we had these clear little plastic containers, and we had these little fluffy balls, like cotton balls, but they were different colors. And so for good behavior, you could put cotton balls in. And at one point I was going to have them take them out. I didn't like that idea. I was like, no, we'll just do, you don't add. I don't want you taking cotton balls out, because that's all very right. So we were out in public, and they were really cooperating. They were being very cooperative or something like that. And there were people around, and I don't remember which one of my children said something to me about like, can we get cotton balls when we get home? Right. Meaning into these containers. And I was like, oh, absolutely. And they're all excited. And like people around me are looking like, cotton balls, like these kids, like that's what she rewards these kids with, cotton balls, not seeing the bigger picture. But I remember in that moment thinking, in addition to the comedy of the situation, that are they understanding that the cotton balls are really just reflective of me acknowledging that behavior and not defining them? Like, I don't want them to look at those containers with the cotton balls in it and think their worth is dependent on how many cotton balls. It's simply a matter of, are we going to go to the ice cream stand later? Or are we going to do this because you're being cooperative? But it made me stop and take note. And I have thought about that sometimes in companies, because I feel like people are symbolically working for the cotton ball. They're not working for the intrinsic value that they're bringing to the world, or how they're going to be part of the bigger good. Sometimes they don't even know what the mission of the company is. It's just like, this is my task and I'm going to do it. So they're understanding we need money pays bills. And I would never say that you shouldn't be attentive to your budget. But again, if we are, like my child said there in that moment, which was funny, but think about it. In how many ways in our lives do we kind of be like, am I going to get a cotton ball? Like, where's my cotton ball?
Yep.
and yeah, that when you were just talking about the joy and the connection and that image popped into my head in that moment that I had about it. And I in my professional career, but also just in my personal life, when you just said, I see you, that moves me, because when I
Mhm.
wake up in the morning, one of the things I pray to God about is like, let me honor the gifts that I've been given in a way that's meaningful. Like
Yes.
whatever I do, I know I'm gonna probably there's gonna be some things where I'm gonna mess up, but let me always be mindful in honoring the gifts that I've been given. And
Yeah.
that is about helping one another. That is
Yeah.
about living joyfully. That is about being mindful. That is about things as corny as sitting on the lawn and noticing the way that the sun is catching a blade of grass. It's
Yeah.
just really taking in all that's around you. So I see you, and
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that. I would love you to talk a little bit more about your yoga specifically, because this conversation's so beautiful. I don't want to miss the opportunity for you to talk about how what you do helps people to do those things. So
Yeah.
can you
Thank
talk a
you.
little bit about that?
Yep. So after learning yoga, I was maybe obsessed. I still am. It is so deeply healing for me. And it's such the gift of presence and empowerment, coming back to this power that we have inside of our bodies, and having the opportunity to feel that. So I do teach every morning. I teach virtually. After the pandemic, the studio I was at closed. And so I have the opportunity to move and be in different places and different locations to teach workshops, events, and retreats. I don't have a brick and mortar, and I don't want one. So with that being said, I teach virtually, and I do have workshops. I have also, I do life coaching. So part of my journey, part of my deep healing, I did a bunch of immersions with Tony Robbins, who helped me really eradicate some of these old limiting beliefs and these old stories I had. So I've done so many that I couldn't even count. Went through his coaching program, as well as now I volunteer at his events. So I get to be a crew member and go be a part of the behind the scenes team to see people move through his style of transformational experiences, which is really beautiful. Um, the yoga is really powerful we call it a breath body practice, connecting the prana, which translates to life force energy, into the body and to help move it through. The breath is really the medicine. It's to bring life and energy, healing energy into the vessel. We practice every morning. I would welcome anyone that's on here to join. Just send me a DM. I'll send you can get a 5-day free pass. I'd love to see you. And if you can't do it in person at the times I teach, we have an on-demand library. So yoga is kind of the entry point. I call it the student journey. Someone who's not really ready for life coaching or full immersion, like a transformational retreat, or I do have a master class too that's 6 months long called Awaken, to really help awaken the whole self, the mind, the body, the soul. I help people from a midlife crisis where we're just unfulfilled, we're unhappy, we're looking for meaning in life, and helping them on the path of awakening, a spiritual awakening. So those who aren't ready for the deeper work, the yoga, start there. It's something you can work on and feel a shift in every single class from every single breath. And those who are ready for more, I have a master class, and then I have retreats as well.
Yeah, excellent. I'm excited because I know that people are going to find this one way or the other. The people that need to be there are going to be there, and that they're going to feel a joy, right? That joy that you're talking about, that kind of surpasses all of the circumstantial stuff that we're going to be through, because we are going to go through some tough stuff.
Yeah.
That's part of our existence.
Yeah. Yeah,
So okay.
there's no need to avoid that too, right? We stopped. The hard became so hard that we stopped trying, and we want to avoid the hard that's actually not life, right? We just have to have the tools and the support system, the community, that when life gets hard, we have a team and the structure to move through it in a graceful way.
Right.
And then we celebrate the joy on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the fact that you and I are talking about, that we've had, we grew up in alcoholic households, and the difficult circumstances we had to navigate as children. And yet I know very directly the way that that's influenced the way that I love, and the capacity that I have for some of the tools that I've helped people with has come directly from that experience. Doesn't mean I wish that on somebody,
No.
but it means I can really see the beauty in the whole life that I've lived,
Yeah.
dark parts included. And they were dark because they were difficult in the moment when I was going through them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm kind of at a loss for words, thinking about the cool connection here, because there were some things I didn't realize that we even were, that we're gonna relate about.
Yeah.
So, um, tell people how to get in touch with you. Yeah, I'm getting a little weepy here. Well, I'm okay.
I'm not crying. You're crying. JKS Yoga is JKS Yoga and Coaching is my handle for Instagram, also for Facebook. It's Jennifer Kenney-Smith on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my career background. I do offer corporate coaching and events and experiences there too. And my heart is really for women who are where I've been, in that place that you want to be successful, based on your terms now, however, not based on what you've been told, your role, your title, your W-2. And there is freedom, and there is liberation, and it doesn't have to be how it is today. So those are the ways to reach me. And I'm excited to connect. I don't want to use the word help, because I feel like the women listening will be like, I don't need any help. I'm not saying you need help, girl, but maybe you need some help. Maybe you need a support system. So
Yeah.
I'm here to support and encourage and remind everybody how freaking amazing you are and how beautiful you are. And
Yes.
We all are, and we get to shine bright together.
Yeah, I love it. And I love, like sometimes we'll say, like, when we move forward, we want to reach back. And I think that phrase is okay, because I know the intent of it, but I always think like we should just be reaching to the sides like the entire time. Like we're all headed in the same direction. Nobody's in front of anybody else. Nobody's better than anybody else. We're trying to make our way. We're trying to figure things out. And we're surrounded by people resources, right, around us that are going to be able to teach us things if we just live curiously in that. And I do want to note, because I was like, oh, I'm getting weepy. And I think, sometimes we do that and we're like, oh, let me settle down. Let me not. But like, I'm not even, I did get teary eyed. I'm glad that I got teary eyed. That is part of it, right? Something that you said and the way that we connected moved me. And like, that's how we live fully.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, bring the tears. I mean, I don't know if I'm crying all the time, but like,
right.
I think that's the magnitude of what happens when we open up ourselves to each other, from an emotional perspective, but from an information perspective, and we gain from each other. So, all right, you've already given a lot of great tidbits, but what is a final thought that you would like to leave everybody with? And I should say tidbits. They were beyond tidbits, but
I understand from my own journey that the suffering is the resistance. The suffering is the isolation. I call my own journey, like there was not just the abandonment throughout my life of the people that were assigned to care and love me. There was an emotional abandonment, some physical, but there was also an abandonment of me. At some point, I stopped fighting for me. I stopped identifying with the child in me that is worthy, that is loved implicitly. At some point, and I don't know exactly when, but I have some ideas. And then the great reclamation, the coming back to find myself. And I just want to encourage anyone listening that is in any sort of struggle or battle with life, just a big umbrella there. You are worthy of taking the time to rediscover you and your inherent worth. You are worthy of feeling loved just by being here, not because of what you do or what you look like or what you do for people. None of that. It does, like the conditions and terms that you can completely void them just in this moment, to maybe feel into your heart that you're worthy, and just to hold that space. And anytime life presents an opportunity for you to feel something other than that, it's not yours, it's not true, it's not your story. I am hopeful that I can reach the women that have been struggling, because I know what it felt like to be alone, and it was nothing short of awful. And I spent too many nights on hands and knees crying my guts out, waiting for something to show up. And I found it teacher by teacher, podcast by podcast, book by book, yoga pose by yoga pose, and then finally got to that place of self-acceptance, that great reclamation. So I just want to leave that here, that the suffering is a choice, but the worthiness is already yours.
Yeah, I want to emphasize something that you just said there that I thought was really that reclamation, that word of reclamation. It's not something you're giving to anybody or I'm giving to anybody, or it's something that's already there and you just need to claim it. And it's an amazing thing that we are living in a world where we can do that for one another
Yeah.
in so many ways.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you on so many levels for being here. Thank you to everybody who joined us, whether you joined us live, whether you're watching this recorded. We appreciate you giving us part of your day and finding us um, something that you would somebody and our content something that you would want to take in. I feel really blessed that we were able to share this time with you. And yeah, so thank you again. Thank
Thank
you
you.
again.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care. Bye bye.